Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes. MASH wasn't just a TV comedy. It was a cultural battlefield. On screen, audiences saw quick-witted doctors joking through the horrors of war. Behind the camera, there were vanishing stars, studio battles, fires that consumed sets, and actors breaking under emotional strain. Today, we're peeling back the curtain with 20 weird facts about MASH. From shocking deaths to bizarre lawsuits, these secrets prove the chaos was even wilder off-screen. And stick around, because at the end, I'll reveal a bonus fact so strange it almost erased part of the show's legacy forever. Let's scrub in. 1. Wayne Rogers. Never signed a contract. Imagine working 3 full seasons on one of the biggest TV hits ever, without a single legal agreement. That was Wayne Rogers. He played Trapper John, one half of the show's original comedy duo. Producers assumed he'd stay, but Rogers hated how his role shrank as Alan Alda's Hawkeye took center stage. So he vanished. No farewell episode, no grand goodbye. When CBS threatened to sue, Rogers stunned them. There was no contract to enforce. Hollywood lawyers had to admit they'd been outplayed. What audiences didn't see was a man tired of being reduced to Hawkeye's sidekick. He walked away from TV gold, only to strike real gold later as a millionaire investor. Sometimes the best exit is the one nobody sees coming. 2. Radar's teddy bear disappeared for 30 years. Radar O'Reilly's teddy bear symbolized innocence in a war zone. That little stuffed animal became one of TV's most iconic props. But when MASH ended, it simply vanished. For decades, fans wondered where it went. In 2005, it suddenly resurfaced at a memorabilia auction. A medical student paid $11,500 for it, only to return it to Gary Burghoff, the man who played Radar. Burghoff, who had left the show heartbroken from burnout, finally had a piece of closure when the bear came home. It wasn't just a prop. It was a reminder that even in the blood and chaos of war, childlike hope survived. What audiences didn't know was that this fragile relic spent 30 silent years lost, while fans kept Radar's memory alive. 3. Henry Blake's death was a secret from the cast. Colonel Henry Blake's exit wasn't just shocking, it redefined television. McLean Stevenson left the series dreaming of stardom, but producers refused to give him a cheerful goodbye. Instead, they killed Blake off-screen, his plane shot down over the Sea of Japan. Here's the twist. Only Gary Burghoff, Radar, knew in advance. The rest of the cast filmed their scenes unaware. When Radar walked into the OR and delivered the line, there were no survivors. Their stunned reactions weren't acting. They were real. America gasped. CBS received over 1,000 letters, some praising the honesty, others furious at the cruelty. A sitcom had dared to remind audiences, in war, not everyone makes it home. It wasn't just a plot twist, it was a cultural gut punch. Fourth Klinger was almost written as gay Jamie Farr's beloved cross-dresser. Corporal Klinger nearly looked very different. Originally, the writers planned Klinger as a one-episode gag, a gay soldier trying to escape the army. But Farr flipped the script. He played Klinger as a straight man whose outrageous outfits were desperate ploys for a Section 8 discharge. The gamble worked. Audiences fell in love with his comedic timing and humanity. Suddenly, what was supposed to be a quick joke became one of the show's most enduring characters. Farr himself had Army experience, and he grounded Klinger's antics in real desperation. Instead of being defined by stereotypes, Klinger became an unlikely symbol of resilience, not a caricature, but a survivor. Without Farr's performance, Klinger might have disappeared after a single scene. Another forgotten punchline. 5. Actors were punished with heavy coats. The cast of MASH wasn't afraid to give notes on scripts, but after endless nitpicking, the writers struck back with brutal creativity. They scripted scenes requiring the actors to wear heavy military parkas while filming in Malibu's 100-degree heat. The message? Stop complaining or suffer. The trick worked. Suddenly, feedback dried up. What audiences never knew was that some of those sweaty, miserable shots weren't just acting. The discomfort was real, baked into the production. It wasn't Hollywood glamour. It was punishment dressed up as realism. The joke wasn't in the dialogue. It was in the sweat dripping down actors' faces. Sometimes the battle wasn't against the network or the war. It was against the heat. 6. Frank Burns was written out off-screen. Larry Linville, who played the insufferable Frank Burns, wasn't pushed out. He walked away. For 5 seasons, Burns was the petty villain, a one-note foil to Hawkeye and Trapper. But Linville, a classically trained actor, realized he had taken the role as far as it could go. "I had taken the character as far as he could go," he admitted. Rather than recycle the same insecurities, he chose artistic integrity over a paycheck. The writers responded by quietly promoting Burns off-screen, a cushy military reward for his incompetence. It was satire in itself. Even in fiction, the inept fail upward. Audiences never got closure, just a cruel reminder that some people simply vanish, replaced by someone more complex. Not an ending. An indictment. 7. The show almost got canceled. After Season 1, believe it or not, MASH almost didn't make it past its freshman year. In 1972, it aired opposite Disney's powerhouse, Wonderful World of Disney. Ratings were abysmal. CBS executives had already sharpened the axe. But then came a desperate move. The show was shifted to Saturday nights, nestled between All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The gamble worked. Ratings skyrocketed, and MASH* became a cultural giant. What fans didn't know was that the series came within a single decision of disappearing forever. One programming shift saved it, transforming a near flop into an 11-season juggernaut. It wasn't fate, it was scheduling. Not creative genius, but luck, and the luck stuck. 8. The series outlasted the Korean War. The Korean War lasted just over 3 years. MASH lasted 11. That means the 3-year conflict dragged on nearly 4 times longer in prime time than it did in real life. The show became not just a comedy, but a cultural time machine, allowing Americans to process the trauma of Vietnam through the lens of Korea. What audiences didn't realize was that many kids who started watching the show were in college by the time it ended. It wasn't a sitcom anymore. It was a generational mirror. By its finale, MASH wasn't retelling history. It had become history itself, shaping how millions remembered a war most had tried to forget. 9. McLean Stevenson wanted to be the star. McLean Stevenson, who played Henry Blake, didn't leave because he hated his role. He left because he wanted more. "I want to be number 1, he told People magazine. He dreamed of leading his own series, not being a lovable supporting player. But fate was cruel. His new shows, The McLean Stevenson Show and Hello Larry, collapsed quickly. Meanwhile, Henry Blake's shocking death became one of television's defining moments. Ironically, the role he abandoned cemented his legacy more than anything he ever did afterward. Stevenson's ambition created a cultural earthquake, but it also trapped him in history. He wanted stardom. What he got was immortality, as the man whose death broke America's heart. 10th Dodgers baseball players became patients. By Season 7, the writers had a problem. They were running out of names for the endless stream of wounded soldiers. So they improvised, using the 1978 Los Angeles Dodgers roster. Real athletes suddenly became fictional patients under Hawkeye's scalpel. It was an inside joke hidden in plain sight, a wink to baseball fans who might recognize the names. Most viewers never noticed, but for those who did, it was surreal. Icons of America's pastime bleeding into the wounds of war. Not just background names, a sly reminder that every soldier could have been someone recognizable, someone we cheer for. And if you think that detail is wild, just wait for what's coming next. We're only halfway through. The next facts will reveal fires that destroyed sets, military veterans in the cast, and secrets CBS tried to bury. So go ahead and like and subscribe because you won't want to miss the chaos still ahead. 11. The outdoor set burned to the ground. By 1982, MASH was nearing its end when nature delivered one final twist. A massive California brush fire swept through the Malibu ranch where exterior scenes were filmed. The flames devoured tents, props, and years of history. Instead of rebuilding, the writers wove the disaster into the finale. Enemy shelling torched the camp, forcing the doctors to evacuate. What audiences didn't know was that those blackened ruins on screen were real. The set had already been destroyed. Life imitated art in the most brutal way possible. Not special effects, not clever staging, just ash, smoke, and the eerie silence of a set that had served as home for over a decade. 12th cast members actually served in the military. MASH wasn't just acting. Several stars brought real military experience into the operating tent. Alan Alda served 6 months in Korea in the Army Reserve. Jamie Farr was stationed in Japan before joining Red Skelton's USO tour. Wayne Rogers navigated ships in the Navy, while Mike Farrell wore Marine Corps green. Their military pasts gave the comedy a layer of authenticity no script could fake. They weren't just reading lines, they were recalling memories. When Alda pushed for realism in storylines, it came from lived experience. Audiences laughed at the jokes, but behind them was the echo of men who had really worn uniforms, really felt the cold, and really longed for home. 13. The laugh track wore CBS refused to air MASH without canned laughter. To them, no sitcom could survive without it. But producers Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds fought back. They begged to strip out the laugh track, especially during surgery scenes. Eventually, the compromise was struck. The operating room would stay silent. The UK went further, broadcasting the entire show without laughs. The result? Scenes suddenly hit harder, the silences more haunting. A war comedy without forced chuckles became something profound. What audiences didn't realize was that every battle for realism wasn't just on screen. It was fought in edit rooms, script meetings, and late-night calls with network executives who didn't understand that sometimes the absence of laughter speaks louder than any punchline. 14. Gary Burghoff left. Because of burnout, Radar O'Reilly was the heart of the 4077th, innocent, loyal, beloved. But behind the scenes, Gary Burghoff was crumbling. The grueling schedule, combined with his perfectionism, led to crippling anxiety. He felt underappreciated, even as fans adored him. Worse, he was missing his daughter's childhood while embodying a character who symbolized lost innocence. By season 7, he begged for lighter workloads, fewer scenes, more time. It wasn't enough. Finally, he walked away. Radar's farewell episode, where he leaves his teddy bear behind, became one of the most emotional goodbyes in television. For fans, it was heartbreaking fiction. For Burghoff, it was survival. Not just a character leaving war, an actor escaping his own. 15th future stars made cameos. MASH wasn't just a hit, it was a launchpad. Across its 11 seasons, countless future stars passed through the camp. Ron Howard played a scared underage Marine. Leslie Nielsen appeared as a stern colonel. Lawrence Fishburne, John Ritter, Patrick Swayze, Shelley Long, and Rita Wilson all made appearances. Even Pat Morita, years before The Karate Kid, suited up as a South Korean officer. For them, MASH was just a guest role. For viewers rewatching today, it's like spotting hidden treasure. What audiences didn't know then was that they were glimpsing Hollywood's future through the lens of a war comedy. Those brief roles carried the weight of history, a strange mix of young talent cutting their teeth while legends were already being written. 16. Writers named characters after ex-girlfriends. Sometimes inspiration came from the battlefield, other times it came from old flames. Writer Ken Levine admitted that when he needed quick names for minor characters, he pulled from his personal life. Old girlfriends found their way into the scripts, like Patty Haven, who showed up in the emotional two-parter Goodbye Radar. On screen, these names seemed like random background details. In reality, they were little Easter eggs of Levine's past, immortalized in the annals of TV history. It wasn't just writing. It was memory stitched into dialogue. What audiences didn't know was that some of the soldiers and nurses in the 4077 were echoes of real heartbreak, old romances, and forgotten faces. Not fiction. Fragments of someone's life. 17. Loretta Swit. Transformed Hot Lips. When MASH began, Major Margaret Houlihan was written as an explicit punchline. Nicknamed Hot Lips after a crude gag in the original film, she was a caricature of military rigidity and desire. But Loretta Swit refused to let the character stay flat. Season by season, she infused Margaret with intelligence, strength, and humanity. By the end, Houlihan was a decorated officer, a complex leader, and one of the few women on TV openly wrestling with war's cruelty while still holding the line. Swit stayed all 11 seasons, appearing in both the pilot and the finale. Her fight wasn't just for screen time, it was for dignity. Audiences thought they were laughing at a stereotype. What they didn't realize was that Swit was dismantling one before their eyes. 18. Real Army doctors consulted the show. Accuracy mattered. In 1974, Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds traveled to Korea to meet real surgeons who had served in MASH units. They toured the 43rd Surgical Army Hospital, the very place that inspired the original book. They brought back details that changed the series, introducing authentic rituals, military slang, even the infamous Rose's Bar. Army doctors also advised scripts, showing actors how to handle instruments and triage patients. What audiences didn't know was that the gallows humor, the procedures, even the slang in the OR weren't just made up. They were echoes of real men and women who lived it, not comedy, testimony. Every episode became a strange blend of entertainment and documentary, laughter mixed with scars. 19. David Ogden Stiers refused the spin-off Charles Emerson Winchester III. Played by David Ogden Stiers, joined in Season 6 and quickly became a fan favorite. Cultured, arrogant, but deeply human, he was the anti-Frank Burns. When Aftermash launched, producers begged Stiers to join. He refused. Winchester had said what he needed to say, he explained. It was an unusually dignified exit in Hollywood. Instead of milking the role, he chose closure. Stiers later built a rich career in theater, television, and even voicing Disney characters. What audiences didn't know was that his restraint gave Winchester more power, not dragged through a spin-off, but sealed in memory as one of TV's most layered creations. Sometimes the bravest choice isn't to stay. 20th. The finale made television history. On February 28, 1983, America stopped. The finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, drew over 100 million viewers, 77% of TVs in the country. For 2.5 hours, audiences watched their beloved doctors scatter, scarred, but surviving. Alan Alda co-wrote and directed the episode, making history as the first person to win Emmys for acting, writing, and directing on the same show. What audiences didn't know was that the finale wasn't just entertainment. It was ritual. Families gathered, phones went silent, water usage across cities dipped as people held back until commercials. It wasn't TV anymore. It was an American event, a farewell so powerful it remains the most watched scripted broadcast in U.S. history. Bonus fact: Radar's teddy bear almost vanished forever. That teddy bear, the one Radar carried through 11 seasons, the one that symbolized innocence in the middle of war, almost disappeared from history. When the show ended, the bear was lost, assumed stolen or discarded. For 3 decades, fans searched, but nothing surfaced. Then, in 2005, it reappeared at a memorabilia auction. A medical student bought it for $11,500. And here's the twist. He returned it to Gary Burghoff. For the man who left the series broken by exhaustion, the teddy bear's return was like closing an old wound. What audiences didn't know was that this prop wasn't just fabric and stuffing. It was a relic of television history, nearly erased, nearly forgotten, but saved in the nick of time. MASH wasn't just a sitcom. It was a mirror of war, a stage for ego battles, and a lesson in resilience. Behind the laughter were lawsuits, breakdowns, fires, and heartbreak. Yet through it all, the show endured, shaping how America remembered Korea, and, by extension, Vietnam. Sometimes the strangest truths hide behind the jokes. A disappearing star who never signed a contract. A laugh track war fought in editing rooms. A teddy bear lost for 30 years. These weren't accidents. They were the scars of a production that dared to be real in a world built on illusion.